Welcome to episode 12 of Fourth and Inches from your favorite podcast crew, Nate, Jordan, and Cray. This week, we will discuss the rambunctious play of the NFL and some Thanksgiving treats. Talk about how our Thanksgiving were. Power rank some foods maybe towards the end, if you guys were lucky. And just get into who's really making a playoff push at the right time. Here we go. So, guys, Jordan, start with you. How was your Thanksgiving for the year 2016?
My Thanksgiving was very good. I saw some family members, got to see the crew back home in Philadelphia, ate some good food, probably gained around 6 pounds this weekend, mainly of just stuffing my face with mashed potatoes and then the next morning leftovers of the same mashed potatoes. So it was just an overall feast.
Yeah, Thanksgiving, being on break with the buddies back home, definitely always a good time. Spending a little bit of time with the fam, just watching some football, eating some great food. My family's big on the mac and cheese when it comes to Thanksgiving. Loads of mac and cheese, turkey, mashed potatoes, stuffing, all types of great food, and just giving a lot of thanks, thinking about the Pilgrims, thinking about John Wayne, just doing all kinds of great activities. So no complaints at all. Happy to be back at it with the podcast.
Yeah, shout out the Pilgrims for real. Mayflower, I see you. As my boys mentioned, Thanksgiving was fantastic, as it usually is. It's a great holiday, just the concept of everyone sitting around watching football and eating mass amounts of food. Can't really complain with the logic on that one. Did have a great Thanksgiving with lots of turkey. My favorite food actually happens to be deviled eggs for Thanksgiving. A bit of a curveball there, but big deviled eggs guy. So really enjoyed those. As Jordan mentioned, mashed potatoes, also a main staple. It's great to see the family, the dog, the crew of friends. Everyone separates for college, so it's always good when the boys are back in town, as they say. But yeah, great weekend of eating and family, and great weekend of football. So let's get to it. And here we go with the Week 12 rapid recap. Kicking it off on Turkey Day, we had 3 great games. The nightcap, Steelers at Colts. Steel Curtain win this one 28-7. Wasn't too tough of a task. They were playing Scott Tolzien. Big Ben, 221 yards, 3 touchdowns. All 3 to who else? Big AB, Antonio Brown, 91 yards, receiving, 3 touchdowns. Titans at Bears. Titans hold on 27-21, got close towards the end. Marcus Mariota continues his tear, 226 yards, 2 touchdowns, no picks. Rashard Matthews had 64 yards receiving and 1 touchdown. Jaguars at Bills. Bills won this one by a score of 28-21. T-Mobile, Tyrod Taylor, 166 yards, 1 touchdown. Sammy Watkins, 3 receptions, 80 yards in his return from the IR. Bengals at Ravens. Ravens win this one 19-14. Kenneth Dixon, 49 yards on the ground. Justin Tucker, 4 for 4 for field goals, 3 of them over 50 yards. Best kicker in the game. Cardinals at Falcons. Falcons win this one 38-19, pretty much eliminating the Cardinals from playoff contention. Matt Ryan, 269 yards, 2 touchdowns, 1 pick. Devontae Freeman, 60 yards on the ground, 2 touchdowns. Rams at Saints. Saints win this one in blowout style, 49-21. Drew Brees, 310 yards, 4 touchdowns. Michael Thomas, 108 yards, 2 touchdowns. The rookie from Ohio State having a great year. 49ers at Dolphins. The Finns win this one 31-24. Close call at the end there. Kaepernick got all the way down to the 2-yard line but couldn't punch it in. Jay Ajayi, 45 yards on the ground, 1 touchdown. Ryan Tannehill, 285 yards, 3 touchdowns through the air. Chargers at Texans. Chargers win this one by a score of 21-13. Melvin Gordon, 70 yards on the ground. Dontrell Inman, 119 yards, 1 touchdown. Seahawks at Buccaneers. Bucs win this one by a score of 14-5. Jameis Winston, 220 yards, 2 touchdowns. Mike Evans had himself a day. 104 yards, 2 touchdowns receiving. Patriots at Jets. Pats struggled a little bit in this one, but ended up winning 22-17. Brady, 286 yards through the air, 2 touchdowns. Blunt contributed 67 yards on the ground. And that's your Week 12 rapid recap. Kicking off our in-depth analysis, we will look at 2 of the Turkey Day games. Start with the first one, the morning game. We had the Minnesota Vikings travel to Detroit, take on the Lions. The Lions won an entertaining one, 16-13. Late pick by Darius Slay set up the field goal for none other than clutch gene Matt Prater, who nailed the game winner to give the Lions a 16-13 lead. The Lions now take the undisputed lead in the NFC North, and if the season ended today, they would make the playoffs. Guys, I guess I'll start with you, Jordan. Looking forward for Detroit, they are sitting at 7-4, first place. Do they have enough to finish on top and win their division?
I think they definitely have enough to finish on top of their division just by circumstance. I think a lot of the other teams in their division haven't been playing as well as they wanted to this year. And just overall, the Lions have shown time and time again that they just know how to finish a game with the best of them. I mean, they don't have the best point differential this year. I think they're +9 on the season. And with a 7-4 record, that's pretty outstanding if you just kind of take that in and of itself.
Yeah, I mean, going into this game, the Lions knew that first place in the division was at stake, and, they came out and played well. They do know how to play games late and win in the fourth quarter. Matthew Stafford has been chucking the ball as he usually does, playing well. And that defense, it hasn't been the best in the league, but they play very timely defense. As you said, Darius Slay, he's a big-time corner, knows when to make plays. So right now, the Lions are sitting pretty comfortable at the top of this NFC North. And, the Packers and Vikings have not been playing their best football. So if the Lions can just hold on, win a few more games down the stretch, they're going to be the number 1 seed in that division.
Yeah, Stafford's numbers, you wouldn't be able to tell by looking at his season numbers. They're pretty average. They're a little bit above average, pretty solid numbers. Nothing spectacular, but he's played really good football this year. This game, he only had 232 yards and 1 touchdown, but down the stretch when it matters, Matt Stafford has been a very reliable quarterback for the Lions this year. In what's been a weird year in the NFL, the Lions have 7 wins. Who would have thought? They need to find their running game, though, if they really want to be a threat in the playoffs. Their leading rusher, Theo Riddick, for only 45 yards. That's not going to cut it against a good team. You're going to have to be able to run the ball, not be one-dimensional. However, I do think their receivers have stepped up to the task. They have low-key receivers that have actually been playing really good ball this year. Golden Tate, Anquan Bolden, and Marvin Jones. It's a pretty solid receiving core. Guys that aren't really headliner receivers, but all guys that are talented and can contribute to the passing game. So if Matthew Stafford can keep playing good ball and they can somehow find a running game here moving forward, I definitely think that Detroit can wrap up their division in first place. Moving on to the most entertaining game of Turkey Day by far, we had Washington Redskins against Dallas Cowboys in the NFC East clash. Cowboys keep it rolling with a 31-26 victory. They improved to 10-1 on the year. That's just incredible that I'm even speaking that sentence. Dak Prescott continues to win. 195 yards, 1 touchdown, quarterback rating of 108.9. Kirk Cousins, though, really tore it up. 449 yards, 3 touchdowns, no picks for a rating of 120.7. Zeke kept it rolling on the ground, 97 yards and 2 touchdowns. Washington really didn't find their running game in this game, probably because they were losing most of the game. But, guys, the Cowboys now improved to 10-1. Washington sitting at 6-4. Can anyone stop the Cowboys at this point?
I think at this point, the only thing that's stopping the Cowboys really would be themselves. If you just look at their team in general, I mean, on the offensive side, they have the best offensive line in football, best running back in football, one of the most consistent quarterbacks in football right now, one of the best receivers in football in Des Bryant, and then they've got a Hall of Fame tight end to go along with that. So offensively, I think as a whole, they're by far the most put together offensive team, and then their defense has been playing some really solid football the last few games. I know Sean Lee's been really stepping up, and the pass rush has been getting to them consistently. So I just think going into the playoffs, they're definitely going to be the favorites, obviously, just because of their record, but really the only thing that's going to be stopping them is themselves.
Yeah, I mean, you look at what this Redskins team did last week to the Packers, just absolutely took them apart, put up 40-plus on them, and then they come in and play Dallas, and Dallas was able to keep them relatively low scoring and win this game, which was an important divisional clash. So right now, the Cowboys are definitely looking like they have the fast track to the Super Bowl from the NFC. They're only going to have to win one game to get to the conference championship, where I'd foresee them playing a team that either they've already beat or is less talented than them in the conference championship game. So I think if they just keep doing what they do, I mean, Jordan pointed it out, their offensive line is dominant, especially late in the year when teams are a little banged up, they're a little injured, and you're able to run the ball on them. That serves you very well late in the year and even into the playoffs, being able to run the football on teams. So I definitely think the Cowboys are going to be able to do that. And for that reason, I don't really see them facing much resistance in the NFC this year.
Yeah, they definitely have been practicing an offensive attack that is built for the playoffs. Any team that can run the ball consistently well is one you'd be afraid to play in December and January. I think the one downfall of this team could be the defense. The pass rush really has been absolutely horrible this year. They had no sacks against the Redskins. DeMarcus Lawrence, after having a great second half last year, has been pretty much invisible. Randy Gregory is going to be gone the whole year because he couldn't stop smoking weed. And we just have a bunch of no-name pass rushers, a bunch of undrafted or like late-round draft picks. And so I think either someone's going to have to step up or we're going to have to incorporate more blitzes. But I think our pass rush could be one downfall. Secondary has been surprisingly good this year. However, there have been injuries recently. Morris Claiborne, Barry Church, and J.J. Wilcox, two of which were starters, have gone down recently. So I think a big key for the Cowboys is to get the secondary healthy, improve the pass rush, but offensively there aren't many flaws at all. So I think if they can finish the season strong and win a few of their last games and keep the momentum rolling into the playoffs, they'll be a tough team to beat for sure. Moving to the Sunday games, this one was a great game from start to finish. We had the Carolina Panthers visiting the Oakland Raiders. Kind of a reversal of tales from last year. Panthers were amazing and the Raiders sucked. Now the coin has flipped. Raiders are amazing this year and now the Panthers suck. Raiders won this one by a score of 35-32. Panthers fall to 4-7, 1-4 away from home. Oakland improves to 9-2 overall, still undefeated on the road. Derek Carr orchestrating a magical comeback after gruesomely dislocating one of his fingers. 315 yards, 2 touchdowns, 1 pick for a rating of 100.2. In my opinion, Derek Carr is the MVP if the season ended right now, but that's a different discussion. The Raiders moved to first place in the AFC West, which is a very competitive division. Kansas City's on their tails at 8-3. Denver sitting at 7-4. Guys, the Raiders tied for first in the AFC. Can they really make real noise in the playoffs?
I definitely think they can make real noise in the playoffs. It's going to be tough, though, because I think the AFC's really shown that it is the best conference in football at this point. I mean, you have teams like the Chiefs, the Broncos, and, of course, the Patriots all going to be there. And it looks like at this point the Raiders are going to get that first-round bye, so it's just going to be a matter of who they play in that second-round matchup. But things are definitely looking good for the Raiders. I mean, they got that dude, Derek Carr. He's just grit personified. I mean, his finger almost fell off his hand and then still ended up coming back in the game and throwing a touchdown. That's just absolutely magical. This defense is making plays. I mean, Khalil Mack with that pick six, that was pretty cool to watch. Not much other analysis on that one. Other than that, it was just a game that they needed to win, and at the end of the day, a win's a win.
Yeah, I mean, right now, I'm a big I'm a big energy guy, and the Raiders just have that energy, like they're just unstoppable at this point. They're really playing great football. O-line's pushing. Latavius Murray's been playing well. And then Derek Carr just really is taking control of this team. He's really taken ownership, and now it's clear that he's the leader. He's who rallies the troops for this Raiders team. So such a gritty win against a team that, they're not playing very well this year, but still a top-level team in the Carolina Panthers. They've proven that they can beat anyone in the NFL on any given Sunday, and obviously showed it again here, hanging with the now 9-2 Oakland Raiders. So as far as playoffs go, they're either going to have the 1 or 2 seed in my mind. It's up in the air between them and New England, depending on how these last 5 games go. But I think if you're the Raiders, you definitely fear going to Foxborough more than you fear going to Oakland in playoff times. Oakland in January is probably still pretty nice, maybe like 45 degrees. But Foxborough in January is a whole different story. It's a very tough place to play, and the Patriots rarely ever lose there. So if I'm the Raiders, I really got to hope I get that 1 seed just so I even have a chance against the Patriots, at least playing at home where I don't have to go to Foxborough and face the tundra.
Yeah, I think going into this year, a lot of people thought the Raiders were maybe a couple years away from making some noise, so they're ahead of schedule, which is exciting for their fan base. They have a really young nucleus of great players. Carr, Murray, and Cooper. Crabtree's still pretty young. Khalil Mack, in my mind, is the Defensive Player of the Year. I think a lot of credit is to be given to Jack Del Rio, though. I mean, he is just put together a masterful performance. You can just tell this team is just oozing with swagger and confidence, and that all starts with the head coach. So I think Oakland is definitely headed in the right direction, and if they keep playing like this, they'll end up being the 1 seed in the AFC. The Sunday night game was one for the ages. Kansas City squeaked out a win in Denver, 30-27 in overtime in this AFC West showdown. Kansas City improves to 8-3, which shockingly still isn't good enough for first place in that very competitive division. Broncos dropped to 7-4. Alex Smith, 220 yards, 1 touchdown, no picks. Very efficient performance from him. Trevor Siemian, 368 yards, 3 touchdowns, no picks. A passer rating of 125.6. That's outstanding. For the Chiefs, the spark plug was Tyreek Hill. Had 3 total touchdowns in the game, 1 receiving, 1 off a kick return, and 1 off a punt return. I believe he's the first player to do that since Gale Sayers, so he's in some good company there. As we mentioned, the Chiefs improved to 8-3. Andy Reid continues his amazing record here with Kansas City, who might have to be a wild card team just because the Raiders have been doing so well. Guys, the Chiefs are a team that consistently win, but they're not sexy. You don't love them. They have a really good defense, but can the Chiefs take the next step and win a couple playoff games with the offense that they currently have?
Absolutely not. I think the last 2 and 3 years they've shown that they're these good regular season teams that always finish with 10 or 11 wins but never really do much in the playoffs. And they're the same team as last year minus Jamal Charles, so I don't really see any of that changing. Unless Alex Smith can somehow has a few tricks up his sleeves and they catch whoever they play, whether it be the Raiders or the Patriots on a bad day, I can't see the Chiefs going far in the playoffs.
Yeah, I definitely don't think the Chiefs are built for playoff success. They do play well in the regular season. As Jordan said, they always somehow find a way to squeak out 10 wins or so, even though they do play in a tough division with the Broncos, and even the Chargers are able to put up points on any given Sunday. So, I just think the Chiefs are going to get matched up with, one of the weaker teams in the AFC in the wild card matchup. Maybe play against, whoever wins the AFC South or something, and probably win the wild card matchup and then just get beat up on by either the Raiders or the Patriots in the divisional matchup. But this is obviously a huge win. I really like it because I don't want to see the Broncos in the playoffs at all. I'd be perfectly happy if, Miami or another AFC team ended up squeaking in and the Broncos got booted out of the playoffs, because the threat of playing the Broncos in the playoffs against that defense. You never know what they're going to be able to do, how they're going to be able to stop your offense if you're an AFC team. So as a Patriots fan, definitely good to see the Broncos take an L, and now the Kansas City Chiefs are kind of asserting themselves in the division, and the Broncos falling by the wayside a little bit. So it'll be interesting to see what happens in these next few games.
Yeah, I think the cold truth is this Kansas City offense just does not have the juice when it comes to playoff time. Like my cohorts mentioned, I don't think there's any way they can hang with the Raiders or Patriots no matter the location of the game. Even with a great defense like this, you got to have some level of offensive efficiency to compete with the Raiders and the Pats, who can hang 25 with ease. So, like they mentioned, they might win their first game, the wild card matchup, but I don't really see a real playoff future there. For Denver, I also don't like their chances on the offensive side. There's another offense that just might not have enough. They are really good defensively, though, so I think better than the Chiefs. So I don't know. These two teams would be interesting, especially if they both make the playoffs. Football is a game of matchups, and so one of these defenses might present a riddle that opposing offense might have some trouble with. So it'll definitely be interesting to see down the stretch. But looking at the AFC playoff picture, Raiders and Patriots will be two tough teams to beat. That's for sure. This past Monday night featured two teams that had high expectations coming into the year but have both underperformed. The Packers, 5-6 overall after this game, and so are the Eagles, who lose their first one at home. They were undefeated at home coming into this game. Aaron Rodgers, 313 yards, 2 touchdowns, no picks, against an Eagles defense that has been very good this year. Wentz struggled a bit, 254 yards, no touchdowns, 1 pick. He doesn't have a lot of help, though. Philadelphia's receiving core is an absolute mess, their best receiver being Jordan Matthews, who got hurt during the game, so he doesn't have a lot of options. Devontae Adams had a very nice night for Green Bay, 113 yards with 2 scores. Going forward here, it looks like the Eagles, unless they can somehow rip off like 4 in a row, are probably missing the playoffs because the NFC East is so competitive. The Packers, still within a couple games of their division. The Lions only have 7 wins. But, Jordan, I'll start with you. Do the Packers have what it takes to go on a little winning streak here and possibly squeak into the playoffs?
I mean, as long as you got Aaron Rodgers, I definitely think you have what it takes. Let's see if the Packers can get a little healthy on the defensive side, especially their cornerbacks. That'd be huge for them if they can get back some of their veteran guys. And I just think that even though they are 5-6 and have struggled this year, they're definitely still in it when you have a guy like Rodgers. And they still have division games left, more importantly, ones against both the Vikings and the Lions. So those will be 2 must-win games for the Packers. But they're really going to need they're going to really need all that they've got at this point. They're going to need Rodgers to play like the MVP that we all know he is. But it's definitely going to take a lot for them to get into the playoffs.
Yeah, I mean, to answer the question directly, I don't think they will accomplish this and end up making the playoffs just because how badly their defense has been playing. Obviously, in this game, they played pretty well. Ended up holding the Eagles to only 13 points. But going up against the Lions and Vikings, I think the Lions offense is definitely going to have a day against the Packers. I see that as a tough game for them to win just because right now their secondary is so banged up. It just looks like people are able to pass on them at will, just leaving guys wide open on the field. Just no excuse for that in the NFL. So, their offense hasn't even been playing that poorly. It's just you really, really just need at least a serviceable defense in the NFL if you're trying to win games. If your defense puts you in a hole early, it's always really tough to come back and win. So for as good as Rodgers is, I don't see him being able to pull this off and catapult them into the playoffs. However, if they find a way to win a few of these last games and make the playoffs, I would look out for them, in the playoffs just because I know Rodgers is a big-time quarterback. He has more experience than some of these other NFC quarterbacks. So once he gets into the playoffs, I think he might have a chance to make a little noise.
Yeah, definitely. Like you said, I can't really see them making the playoffs this year. And that just kind of shows how weird of a year it has been for the NFL. More importantly, or more specifically, the NFC. I mean, going into this year, if you told me that the Packers, Panthers, and the Cardinals wouldn't have made the playoffs, I would have called you crazy. But it's kind of looking like that's going to be the case.
Yeah, looking ahead specifically here at this Packers schedule, 4 of their next 5 games are against winning teams. It does not look good for them to get any type of streak going. Yeah, they might beat the Texans. They could finish with 2 divisional wins against the Vikings and Lions. However, I think it's very unlikely. They're not beating the Seahawks. And, the Bears isn't a gimme either because divisional games are always tough. Soldier Field, tough place to play. So I don't like the Packers' odds to make the playoffs here in 2016, which, as Jordan mentioned, is very strange because they've made it, I think, something like 7 years in a row. In lieu of our weekly fantasy segment, we are going to trade it in spirit of the holiday, for a good old power ranking of Thanksgiving foods. I'll start it off. Sitting at number 1 for me, most people, maybe some people might argue that this is not a traditional Thanksgiving food because it's not. But sitting at number 1 for me, got to be deviled eggs. Big deviled eggs guy. Just love the taste. Outstanding. Number 2, tough call. I think I got to roll with mashed potatoes, though. Mashed potatoes are just outstanding with the butter and, throw a little garlic in there maybe. Good stuff. Number 3 is a tough one. There's a few you could put there. For me, it's got to be the bread rolls. Whether you got croissants or Hawaiian rolls or whatever type of bread you roll with. Just nothing like some hot steamy bread and some butter. Just complements the meal very well. Number 4, very tough call for me. It's between turkey and stuffing. It's honestly like 4A, 4B. I think I might have to split it down the middle there. I guess if I had to choose, I'd go turkey because it's not Thanksgiving without turkey. But that wraps up my top 4 power rankings.
I'm gonna go with top 3 here. Power rankings. Number 1, obviously mashed potatoes. It's definitely the MVP of the plate in general. Just brings the whole plate together. Number 2, I'm gonna go with an untraditional Thanksgiving dish. You could say. My grandmother makes great applesauce, homemade applesauce. So shouts to Gam Gam one time on the applesauce. Really some great stuff. And number 3, I'm going to go a little curveball here. I'm going to go with a glass of cold water just to kind of wash down the food that you've been eating. You just shove your face with like 5 turkey legs, drink some water, say, whoa, I kind of need a minute, go to the bathroom, collect yourself, maybe drink some more water. Then you sit back down, you're just ready to grub some more.
Yeah, for my number 1 food power ranking, I got to go with
power through. Go.
Okay. For my power rankings, got to go with the mac and cheese, number 1. My family, not really traditional Thanksgiving food, but my mom has this mean mac and cheese she cooks up. No easy mac stuff, just some real great homemade mac and cheese. Just real cheesy. Can't argue with mac and cheese. It's just a staple of any American diet to me. So that's number 1. Number 2, as Nate alluded to, big roll guy. Just any type of like Hawaiian bread roll. I'm probably stuffing those in my face like before the meal even starts. Just like your parents are like, oh, don't fill up on bread. You're like, Mom, it's Thanksgiving. Like, I'm eating. And I just get so full off bread. Got to just take a minute, come back to the table. It's time to pound. Just turkey, number 3. Turkey is just, it's the lifeblood of a Thanksgiving dinner. It just complements everything so well. You've got the mashed potatoes and gravy, but nothing like just the Thanksgiving turkey. Everyone gets a piece. It's a big deal. And then number 4 is the mashed potatoes. As I said, great compliment. Just the whole dinner just feels like it all pieces together like some delicious puzzle. So Thanksgiving dinner, can't really argue with it. One of the top 5 meals you have all year.
That about does it for episode 12 of 4th and Inches. I'm Nate.
I'm Jordan.
And I'm Creed.
It's been a great time. We had a good time. We hope you had a good time. We'll see you next week.